Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across the globe. Welcome to this segment of this training. My name is Tommy Vincent, and just a short bio about me. Um, I've practiced law for over 3 decades, and with particular passion as well for the area of pastoral issues, the legalities surrounding pastoral matters. I'm a commercial lawyer. I major in commercial matters. I also teach law, but my passion really lies with empowering pastors, ministers, faith-based organizations, and those who are in the non-profit space about the legalities of what they are doing, what really the law says about what they are doing, because many of people who practice in that space tend to ignore law, and this has potentially dire consequences that could make or mar whatever they've built up over the years. By God's grace, I draw experience from my role as the legal advisor of CAN, Christian Association of Nigeria Lagos chapter. I'm the director of legal and public affairs, and also as a legal advisor on the platform of Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria as a Lagos State. I'm also uh, part of the Constitution Drafting Committee of PFN nationally. That is Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria nationally. I'm also the National Legal Advisor of Renewed Ministers of Christ Fellowship. So I draw examples. I'm also a pastor, by the way. So I have a lot of examples to draw from in terms of practice, in terms of what I've heard, in terms of experiences I've garnered over the year. I'm a faculty of Digital Leadership Academy and many other things. But by grace of God, that is not what I want to speak to today. I just want to speak to the issue that many pastors are facing, and for some reasons, they don't want to really tackle it. They are facing it, but they don't want to tackle it. They believe that with a mere wish of the hand, it will go away, or by faith, or by prayer. And the Bible says, faith without work is dead. And the Bible also says that the labor of the foolish is a wearisome exercise. Why? Because they don't know how to go to town. The Romans also says that you must obey the law because the law is there for your own protection as well. So it is a paramount thing that you need to do. It is something that you need to pay attention to. Law as regards ministry cuts across different spheres. Is it about establishment of branches? Is it about your volunteers? Is it about your employees? Is it about the safety of those who are attending your conferences or your services? It is about the properties that they left in your charge, which maybe you don't know when they park the cars in front of your compound. More or less, except you put a disclaimer out, you have assumed responsibility to take care of those cars and they meet them well when they return from the service. Is it about the role of the children church, the safety of those children that are kept in your care? Is it about the registration and proper registration of your affairs, your ministry? There are so many dimensions of it that I might not be able to talk to today. Like I said, this is not a matter of we're trying to scare or to make you be afraid of ministry. It's a matter of positioning you in a proper perspective so that your mind is able to address those issues right now before they occur. So that just like we do with insurances, why we're not really expecting those things to happen, but just that we're ensuring ourselves against the possibility. Our prayer most times that it will not ever happen, but we still ensure just because we want to be clear about these things. So welcome to this. Yeah, today I'll be talking to the topic what you need to know about faith, the trusteeship of faith-based organization. Now, faith-based organization simply means that it's an organization that is non-profit in orientation, but is tilting more towards the issues of faith endeavors. So it could be hospital ministry, it could be children ministry, it could be church, as in just church ministry, or it could be welfare ministry, prison ministry. It could even be hospital that is set up as a ministry, an extension of the work of ministry. So any organization that is not for profit in orientation, but it is embedded in the space and the faith-based perspective is what we call faith-based organization. Now you can run such organization without incorporating it. There is no law that says you cannot have a faith-based organization without incorporation. But if you have to incorporate it under the Nigerian law, which is CAMA, Company and Allied Matters Act of 2020, then it's imperative that you must have trustees. And these are the people that will be saddled with the responsibility of overseeing the assets and ensuring the fulfillment of the mandate of that faith-based organization. Trustees are not necessarily owners of the mandate. They are mere custodian of the mandate. That's why when you call yourself a trustee, it means that you are there to help to see that what the organization is about, it's meant to be carried out under your watch. Now, I want to understand this as we go along, because when we talk about trustees, trustees have a very strong and important part to play in ensuring the success of an organization. So under the CAMA, trustees must be registered, must be. In fact, when you come under the CAMA, and for even most Western nations, even America, what happens for any non-for-profit or non-profit organization or faith-based organization that is about to be incorporated or meant to be incorporated, seldom is that body itself incorporated. Seldom do you have, in Nigeria, for instance, you will not register something like Church of God Ministry. No, you don't have to register that because you can't register that. What you register is usually the trustees of Church of God Ministry, meaning that to the extent of that registration, is not the organization itself that's been registered, it's the trustees that are being registered. In essence, those trustees are the ones that are saddled. So let's take it back a bit. That those trustees are the ones that are saddled with the responsibility of overseeing what that organization is about. So let's take it back a bit. So let's assume that Pastor Joe has a leading of the Holy Spirit to go and set up a ministry that is, addressing the needs, or that is meant for women, widows or so. Now, that is a leading that God had given, this Holy Spirit had given. What then happens is that he can run that as a private initiative, very individual, and he can even register it to his own name, as his own name, that is Joe, Pastor Joe, enterprise for women affair or what have you. But the moment that he does that, that remains a business concern, which for some reason might be taxed, might have tax issues, might have a lot of regulatory framework to contend with. But if Pastor Joe says that, no, I don't want to have it as just a business entity or a private initiative, I want to have it as a non-profit, which I need to incorporate. Then at that point in time, he must throw open that vision and gather people to come around that vision. When he gathers people to come around that vision, so that means there's a buy-in of other people into what he's doing. So that's what they call formation of that faith-based organization. Formation. When it is so formed that people are gathered around, then the next thing is that if it's going to be incorporated, that what is required will be that amongst those who have believed in the vision, there will be need to look for custodians of that vision, not owners of that vision, custodians of that vision. So those custodians, when they volunteer, they become the trustees of that vision. Now, what it means is that that organization is meant for a mission that has a non-profit orientation, as it were, and that there's a need for custodians of that mission to be brought out. So those custodians become the trustees, and then those trustees are the one that will be incorporated, and that's why they call incorporated trustees of Church of God Mission or Pastor Joe's Initiative for Widows or Joe Initiative Ministry or Joe whatever. No matter the nomenclature, it might even be Joe that is the name, but Joe does not own it. Joe is merely using his name as a nomenclature, that body of trustees that is responsible for the work to that community. So when you understand this, that's why when they are going to come out, when the certificate comes out from the Corporate Affairs Commission, it comes out as the registered trustees of Joe Ministry for Widows or Joe's Initiative for Widows or Church of God Superpower Ministry, whatever it is. In essence, with trusteeship, the body is, or the group is not what is registered. The custodians have taken on the responsibility, committed responsibility to the government, that for this body that is a non-profit organization, we will take responsibility to ensure that the mandate of that body is fulfilled. And then we'll be doing the reporting back, annual returns, statement of affairs, back to you that this is going on. And that's why for any trustees who intend to be known as the owner of a vision and intend to profiteer or profit or to make gains or to make pecuniary gains out of it, it's better you are not a trustee in that sense. We'll come back to that later. But for now, you will have, I hope you have understood what I mean when I say that trustees are more of custodian of the assets and custodian of the mission or the purpose of the work. So, trustees will need to know this, that once they, and by the way, it is expected that before you can even register trustees in Nigeria, at least, they must decide that it's about time we not about time we registered the body or the community. No, it's about time we register the community. And that's why when you're going to incorporate in Nigeria, it is expected that there will be a meeting of where a resolution was made to go and do that registration or incorporation of their trustees. And attendance will be taken in that meeting. And after that meeting, the minutes will state that this so person had been designated as the trustees of that organization. And that's why when the certificate is coming back, it is only certificate for when it comes to registration in Nigeria, whether it is business name, whether it is um, um, company limited by liability or any other structure, partnership, anything. It is the only one that when it is coming back, it comes back with the names of the trustees on it. Why? Because really it's not about the entity, the organization that is registrable. It's about those names of those trustees that constitute what we call the incorporated trustees of that organization. And that's why understanding this will make a lot of difference. There are people who maybe whimsically, out of just a whim or a nudge, will just call a lawyer to please register this ministry for me. Totally wrong, conceptually wrong in the future. Because in most instances, for the sake of the fees you're giving to them, they are going to be like, um, you might just have to put in names that are not available, the meeting, you know, do things that are not supposed to be done just to have that incorporation done. Later, it could really backfire. And that's why the best way to start your ministry is to be deliberate about the formation, deliberate, and also have a sense that this is not about me, the founder. This is about the organization, the body. If you want to keep that work to yourself, you can make it a private company, limited liability company. You can do that. There are people who have ministries on leadership, but they made it a limited liability company. John Maxwell, a lot of them, they made it a private limited liability company. Dominion Publishers Limited. It can become that. But if you want to make it as this is not about me, it's not about profit, and that's why a church for toga of a profit making owned is related to that work. If not your property, it will never be your property. You might have a huge influence over the work, but in the reality about are you a trustee or are you a CEO of that? That is chief operating officer of that work. If you are a trustee and you take it on yourself to be strutting around as though you are the owner, you are going to hurt yourself, because ideally trustees are mere custodians of the work. They are mere guidance of the work, not owners of the work, as it were. So I will stop there a moment and make you ask to ponder over what you have heard before I go on. You're welcome back. Right now, let me talk to you about some myth that we have about faith-based organization. And this myth really has been perpetuated to the detriment of those who are trustees and those who are participating in that space, faith-based organization, particularly when they are registered. Now let's talk about some myths here. First myth I will address: trustees have ultimate power. Trustees, yes, they have significant powers, but whether they like it or not, they must operate within the legal and the constitutional limits of that organization. So, for instance, a trustee cannot just be whimsical about what to do. Like, you cannot have a trustee that says, because I'm the lead trustee, I'm going to just start with, we have to build houses for pastors or build whatever. If that's not within the organization contextual duties, rights, and what has been put into the constitution of the ministry, it might be a whimsical decision that they cannot take. Also, trustees have to understand the legal power that they have. A trustee cannot just take reckless decisions about where to commit the funds of the ministry of that faith-based organization to. Another myth is that trustees can make personal profit. You know, much as trustees are the one that more or less labor, in quotes, for the survival of the organization, the law remains that they cannot make personal profits out of it. And that is, in fact, very, very fundamental. Under the karma, trustees cannot be paid except for maybe what they have given what that, let's say that they give the organization, maybe the use of their land, the use of their houses, or whatever. There can be value for such things, but merely being paid for services rendered might be questionable, and that's why you have to understand. It's just akin to, if I have this phone given to me by a friend of mine to hold for him, as much as this phone might look good with me, might even be the type of phone I use, might be very much in line with my status. But the point is that since this phone has been given to me, my friend is morally unjustifiable and legally also unjustifiable for me to start using this phone to make calls except I'm permitted. But under our law, Nigerian law, there cannot be such permission, because that phone or that body does not belong to the trustees. It belongs to the organization or to that community. And so they are mere trustees of the welfare of that organization. Another myth is that trustees don't need to understand the work of the mission. You can just bring a trustee from outside, or who doesn't. Yes, you can bring somebody who is not a member of the organization to be a trustee, but they must understand what the mission of that organization is about. So, in that way, they'll be able to know the work they are doing, how they need to do the work, because ultimately they'll be responsible for the failure or the success of that organization. Another myth is that all trustees are legal experts. No, they don't need to be legal experts, but it's just that it might be helpful for them to know about the law. But what is very important is that even if they are not legal experts, they take effort to know what the law is saying about their status, because ignorance of the law is not an excuse, as it were. Another myth is that trustees can take decisions without consulting others. No, trustees should work collaboratively with other people and consultation with other stakeholders. So it's not the place of a trustee to think because I am the founder and you take decision unilaterally. That can be a basis of misuse of power, and it can cost you a lot, because sometimes you can enter into transactions that can boomerang, and that decision means that you have, by your decision, taken a negative or made a negative use of the fund of that organization, and that's a misuse of power. That is what they call negligence, you know, use of duty, dereliction of duty, and it can be costly, as it were, to you. Another myth is that trustees are only needed for big organization. No, trustees are needed even for the small ministry. But when you have them, always know why you have them and let them be mindful, trustees be mindful of the duty that they have to commit to under the atmosphere that the ministry or the work or the faith-based organization works. So another is that trustees are only must be wealthy individuals. It doesn't matter. They must not need to be wealthy individuals. They must not be wealthy individuals. And they can have diverse backgrounds, because even it's helpful sometimes that you have not so wealthy, yet the wealthy. Sometimes even you can even have the ones that are not even as educated as the other people, so that you can have perspectives in terms of reasoning and what have you. It all depends on how you manage the trusteeship as well. So trustees are needed, don't need to participate actively. That's another myth. They don't, yes, they are not meant to be, all over the place, strutting around, I'm a trustee. But they need to participate in a way that is giving them a good oversight, a very good oversight about what it takes to manage, not manage, micromanage the organization, but what it takes to be able to oversee the organization issues and what have you. Trustees have no personal liability. That's another myth. They do. They have liability if they don't do what they ought to do to the organization, in terms of managing the organization, getting the organization to do the right thing. Because if they take decisions that hurt the finance of the organization, take decisions that do not allow the organization to work as it ought to work, maybe will led to the erosion or abuse of the financial standing, or maybe damage to the financial or to the finance of the organization, they can be held personally liable for what decision they have taken. Now, another one, the myth that some of us have about trustees is that trustees do not need to worry about the conflicts of interest. And there can be many conflicts of interest. The conflict of interest that you are the CEO, you are also the trustee. There can be conflict of interest that you have something that you are selling to the organization, or they are buying from you as a trustee. So many trustees, or your wife is the head of a school that was set up with the fund of the church, and your wife is earning income from that school. Those are conflicts of interest. And so you must worry about it. And so there's a need for you to manage those conflicts of interest, manage it in a way that it does not hurt the work. Disclose those conflicts of interest. I am involved in this business that I want to go and buy pure water from. I want to go and buy table water from, or want to buy plates from, or want to go and rent chairs from. My wife is the owner of that businesses. And so when they are going to do that, disclose it so that it can be known whether they need to go and buy from it or not. It's important that you to understand that this can cost you a lot in future. It's not business as usual in that sense. So trustees are long-term members. They are long-term members. They don't have to be perpetual trustees. That's a myth. You can have trustees. In fact, the more you are regularly looking and evaluating the the value of those trustees, what's their contribution, how far have they done, what have they done, the better for you, as it were, in terms of perspective of the work. So in some organization, they usually, after a 5-year review, they change trustees to bring in fresh ideas, fresh input, and one other. Now, another myth is that trustees do not need to uh, communicate with the members' organization. That's wrong, because trustees should do regular meetings, regular communication with members. That's why the best thing is that have regular convention, or whatever I call it, annual general meeting, whereby you render accounts, you tell them what is going on. Don't think that, when it comes to faith-based organization, oh, it was what God tells me I will do, and I don't have to call them to it. No, maybe that's a dispensation under the Old Testament, whereby God calls the prophet is responsible to the people and nothing more. But you see, under our law, in the dispensation that we are in Nigeria, it's that you want to go religious. Say, I am not going to register and I'll go by what the Bible says. But the moment you say, I want to register under Nigerian law, under British law, under American law, under a state law, then you must comply. And law says that it is not your organization, it's the organization of the members. So the members have the right. You are not doing them a favor. It's not a privilege. It's a right for them to be told about what's going on in that organization. So no matter how much, no matter how much. So they might not even know. They might not even know. But sometimes there might be just one renegade, one person that is just a breakaway person that demands, oh, we don't do meetings here. Oh, we don't do that one. So it's important as much as possible that you communicate with them regularly. Can be passive. That's another myth. No, trustees can be passive, you know, uh, in a sense that they will not be have to be like, putting their hands in everything. There has to be a structure, a system, but they cannot be passive about the fact that they are responsible ultimately to the government about what is happening in that organization. Let me do two more. There's so many, but I'll just do two more so I can understand, that trusteeship, it's a joyful thing to do, particularly when you know your responsibility. But if you don't know your responsibility, you can be hurting yourself and hurting the work that's supposed to be overseen. You see, trustees can ignore stakeholders' need. That's another myth. And stakeholders are not just church members, even your community, even your people, your suppliers. No, you cannot. You cannot. You have to know that ultimately, once it's a registered entity, stakeholders' engagement is very crucial. Or understanding what stakeholders require so that the work of that faith-based organization can be can be can be sustained. Because if you don't understand, you might find that you are putting your work in a very hostile terrain, or the place you not put the work, or you're not having a good community relationship with your people and people around you. It can hurt the work. and make it go down the drain. So you need to know, particularly when you're buying land, for instance, in Nigeria, the homeowners in quotes in the western part of Nigeria who are going to trouble you. How much of engagement do you have with them before you commit that money? How much of investigation do you make into what you're buying with that church money? So you need to have a good, a good, a good understanding of the need of the stakeholders before you can make that decision. So um, many, but let me finish with this one. Trusteeship or trustees don't need to evaluate their performances. No, every trustee, in fact, there should be an evaluation form, like I said earlier, that that you need to be evaluating yourself. What are we doing? Are we doing the right thing with this work? What is contribution of each one, or what are their contributions, so that we can be able to know whether they have relevance on this board or don't have relevance on the board. It's not a something you have to wear like a symbol. It's not a stripe of honor to be a trustee in that sense. It's actually a call to work. So if you are a trustee who is not doing what you ought to do, who is not helping that work to go on, then maybe you are a super trustee. When was the last time you called the meeting of other trustees? And you feel that when they come to that meeting, they're challenging you because you have a passion. It looks like it's your baby. So you don't want contrary voices about this. That's why you need to be engaged to know why that work is going on, so that you can be able to establish the reality behind it, not just as a personal title or personal um, ownership that you want to hold on to, because you need to know that evaluation of who you are or what you do is critical to the success of that work. And that's why you should be a trustee that knows the what of what you are doing on that board. Let me leave you with this so that you can have some moment to think about it. I'll come back to you in a short while. Yeah, welcome back. Now, related to what I've just said about the myth surrounding trusteeship, is about these conceptions that people generally have about trusteeship. It's funny. They are myth. Myth are things that are imagined, and for misconceptions, they are not just imagined. They are what we live, our way of thinking that this is how it should be. Is unlike the one that we're just imagining it. We live it, have a sense of this is how we believe that the work of trusteeship. And so we have some common misconceptions, like trustees own the organization. No, trustees do not own organization. They are stewards acting in the best of in the best interest of that organization. Particularly when they are registered, when they are faith-based, incorporated trustees, they don't own it. No matter how much closeness link, no matter how much of a baby that organization is to you, ultimately you are not the owner. So you must understand that aspect, that ownership does not consist in trusteeship. Number two, trustees can make decisions alone. It's a misconception, because you accept you are the only trustee, except you are the only trustee. If you are the only, then you can. But as long as a collective or collection of trustees, you cannot make decisions alone. There must be a consensus or maybe an agreement. There might not be unanimous agreement, but at least a consensus, a kind of aggregation of consensus. Okay, three people agreed, two people not agree. There must be, because otherwise, if even you as a founder, you are taking a unilateral decision, you are risking what is called severe, severe penalties. Because when the chips are down, you can be said to have mismanaged, fraudulently mismanaged the organization, because of your unilateral decisions that you take. So be careful that you don't assume unilateral disposition about decisions that you take on this issue of trusteeship. Be very careful. Be careful. So, and I've seen that a lot. The GO assumes alpha and omega status. In fact, as I talk, I see some of you, I'm sure you're not even comfortable hearing this because that's what you do. It's about time you review the process because it can hurt you a lot once they are trust. And that's the reason why when the trustees of the organization are no longer together, sometimes you have people who have left you, they're no longer the trustees there, some of them are dead, and what have you. You cannot, listen to me, it is not about that group. That group on its own is different from trustees. So once we don't have somebody is dead, or people have left, they're no longer there, they're not coming for meeting, you need to reconstitute that trusteeship board. You need to reconstitute it fast and go and get a new trustee board. You cannot assume that because A had left, B is dead, C is no longer there, and that makes you that you're the only trustees and you are taking decisions unilaterally. It's criminal. It can cost you a lot. So that's why that church is not a registered entity. It's the trustees of that church that is registered. And be very careful. So don't take decisions unilaterally. Number three, misconception here on my list is that trustees are paid for their work. See, trustees are not paid for their work. They are typically on voluntary basis. So and they are not compensated. It's so if you want to be a trustee, you can be. If it's your baby and you want to own the baby, why not? Why not? You can. There's nothing wrong. But the moment you assume that role, then you are separated. You cannot be seen at the same time to be collecting money from that or making pecuniary gains out of what you are supposed to be in trust of. Just like the example I gave you earlier about my phone or the phone given to me by my friend, which I cannot be used. So when you're a trustee, you're not the same as the owner. Trustee are employees. See, trustees are not employees. Please hear me very well. They're not employees of the organization. That's the mentality you have to have. They are merely volunteer who are in governance position. Hear me very well. They are not workers of. So trustees, that's I'm a trustees. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. So I'm entitled to be compensated for what I'm doing. No, we are mere volunteers who are working in governance positions. So let's call it governance volunteers. And that is a misconception you have to clear from your mind before it hurts you. Now, another one is trustees can benefit financially. No, trustees cannot benefit financially from activities of organization. I'm not even talking now about salaries. Maybe say, they gave me honorarium or they gave me housing allowance. They gave me this one and they gave me compensation or they just bought a car for me as my birthday. Any pecuniary benefit of any sort is called financial benefit. And in that sense, it's an abuse by law of the trusteeship uh, ordinance as it were. You cannot be seen to benefit from that. So you must always avoid conflict of interest. Avoid it as much as possible. Now, another misconception is that trustees have unlimited power. Now, trustees' power are limited by the law and by the organizational uh, instrument of power, that is the constitution. So you need to know what is the constitution of that organization says, and that's why when anybody subscribes to that, your work, ministry, church, or whatever, and they're in possession of the constitution, if they see you that you are not in alignment with that constitution, even if they are a day old member of that church, they can legitimately ask you questions. They can challenge you. And that's why we should be able to know that it's not about you. And I hear people say sentimentally, they want to take the church from me. Trustees are, you have to be very careful of trustees who can take the church from you. It's never your work. That's what the law says. If you want to make it your own personal, don't register it. Don't register it. You see, it's very simple. I like giving this as an example. Now, if you have a big compound, for instance, and you have a car that you bought, you can drive that car within your compound. Nobody will arrest you. Nobody will do anything to you. But if you want to move that car out of your house to the next street, the law is that for your car to be on the road, it must be registered, right? It must have insurance. It must have a driver's license. So you cannot say, I'm just driving from here to the next street. If you are accosted or stopped, that's not an excuse. You can, when you are inside your compound driving that car, no policeman can come. Nobody can come and say, stop, you're driving the car without license. It's in your compound. But the moment you want to drive out of your compound, then you must comply. And you cannot say, it's my car. It's my car. I bought with my money. No. That's what it is with ministry or faith-based work. If you want to have it at your own, then let it be within your own purview. But if you want to say, I need to have this registered, the trusteeship registered, but that's why it's like you are not registering the organization. You are not even registering the organization. You are registering those who are supposed to be the custodian of the work. And so those custodians are held accountable. The integrity is on the line. They are held accountable to be able to give clear direction to that organization, what they are doing. So that's why you cannot benefit financially as a trustee. Trustees have unlimited power. Like I told you, you cannot have unlimited power. Now, trustees can ignore legal obligations. If you do that, at your peril, at your peril, at your peril. For instance, how safe is a church compound in terms of those who attend? How safe is that hospital? You are bringing relief materials to people and want to share it. How much of crowd control have you put in place? Because if people trample on themselves while they are there, even though you have a good intention, it is a legal obligation on your part that can hurt you because they can sue you. They can sue you untaught in negligence for failing to provide adequate measure of security for them so that they can come and you are the one that invited them. And the rule is your space that you invited people to occupies liability. You must take care that people who come to that space are safe when you are there until you leave the place. So as a trustee, you cannot just sit ensconced in your room or strutting around the power of a trustee without taking adequate measure. That's why in organization, when you want to take decisions that have to do with the public or other things, you have a legal team or legal advisor around you on your board. Do you have people who can passionately advise you, who can confidently advise you? Not the ones that will say, Daddy, yes, sir, you can go on. Daddy, carry go, sir. Daddy, Ekushelua. Daddy, go on. The one that can look at you and say, Daddy, you, this one will hurt you. I mean, I understand. Because many people are, you are restricting us. What? to go. But this here such so that in putting structures in place, you are accommodating those views and enabling them to be taken care of. You need to understand that Jesus, the Lord, our personal Savior, was crucified by reason of law, was an ordination to come and die for us. But when it was going to happen, it happened by reason of trump up charges, taken to court, sentenced. All the matters that you know was by reason of law that he died. So complying with law is something that you cannot ignore as a trustee. Now, how about the misconception of that trustees must manage daily operations of the organization? You see, trustees are to oversee the organization's direction and strategy, not to be micromanaging the organization. That should be CEO or COO that managed. What trustees are to oversee, they are to oversee the strategy, the direction. So when you are a trustee, I want to be involved. That means you're becoming a CEO. Then for that work of CEO, you cannot be paid. That's just it. You can say, okay, I'm so passionate about this baby that I want to be a trustee overseeing the strategy. I also want to be the executioner or executive in charge of making it happen. Then that's a CEO. So why not? You can do that. The law says you can do that. But just that in corporate governance, it might be a conflict of interest of some sort. But we want to do that and say, okay, I will make sure that I honor the rules of corporate governance. I cannot earn income. I cannot do this. I cannot do that. But I know where my position is as a trustee. Then why not? But ideally speaking, trustees are not meant to be micromanaging, to be involved in the daily organization or the organization's daily affairs, as it were. So the next one, I'll just do 2 or 3 more because actually is wide. The area of trusteeship is wide. By God's grace, I intend to write. I'm even doing a book on that topic to ensure that people, on their table in their hand, they can read more about. It's wide. It's quite wide. So let me just talk about 2 or 3 more misconceptions. Some like trustees' personal belief will override that of the organization. So you have a conviction as a trustee. This is the direction we must go. Why not? Why not? You just have to be very careful that you don't make it a mantra to be just, this is how we're going to go. This was must go. That's why it's very important that you understand that even if the Holy Spirit is leading you, that you need to sit down with your board and discuss that issue with your board, particularly when it has to do with the issue of strategy. Discuss with issues that there's a carry on. It's owned by that board of trustees, not just your own. But when you are just saying that it's mine, it's my baby, what I say is what I will do, then you are risking making yourself to be put in a position whereby it can be said that you are the one that took decision and put the trusteeship or put the work in jeopardy, as it were. So that is one. Let me do another one before I go. And this has to do with understanding that trustees don't need training. You need training. Don't assume that all you are going to get is just Bible knowledge. And that's why for those of you who are listening to this, I celebrate you. I salute you. And this is what Church Administrators Society of Nigeria is about, Cason, to empower church administrators, trustees, faith-based organization to know more about the work that they are doing, not just under the Bible, but contemporary issues, legal issues. Don't assume that by yourself you are all sufficient. Expose yourself. No more. Cason has been in operation for about 10 years, and they're doing a serious lot of work to change the paradigm and the mindset of church administrators in Nigeria, in by and large, even Africa. And that's why, see, as a trustee, don't foreclose constant improvement, constant development, constant engagement, challenging the status quo, shifting the paradigm that enables you to become better, to become stronger. Some people have come through Cason's school in the institution of Babcock, they've gotten PDG, very soon they're going to do an MBA in church administration. These are things that will stretch you, make you become more knowledgeable about what you should do. Trustees is not a sit tight syndrome. It's not as if it's not good to be a trustee. It's just that the responsibility are enormous. And the more you know, the better for you. With these few points, I hope I've been able to challenge you to stretch yourself, to know more, and to become a better trustee. Not just assume the role without undertaking the responsibility. Thank you very much for your time. I bid you God success. In Jesus' mighty name. Once again, my name is Toby Vincent. Welcome.